Back then, before the ceasefire agreement, the Koreans were being persecuted by the Burmese army. And I remember my mother always telling me that they had to carry stuff and they had to walk on for miles and miles just to find another safe place.
I came to Canada in 2006 when I was 4.
I came to Canada when I was about 5 years old in 2005.
Refuge,
Well, it has changed the course of our lives.
If we stayed back at the camps, I don't know if we would still be alive, especially with the Myanmar coups, because there's a lot of Korean kids dying right now, and Canada pretty much gave us everything we needed for survival. Back there, we would have to fight for it. We would have to work hard for food, for everything.
It's given us opportunities that we weren't able to get.
I've been given so many opportunities. I'm getting to work up to a higher level of education pretty much, to get a job, to work, and finally support my family after they've supported me for so long.
It's given us a sense of freedom. Yes, I think I would be really different.
I think that I'd be pretty much the same person, just with different experiences, but I'd have similar views as to what I have right now.
I have visited my grandparents who still live along the Myanmar and Thailand border a few years back. What I saw there is that they were self-sufficient. They didn't have any electricity or cars or any of the conveniences we have, and I believe that environment really impacts a person's values and mentality.
Coming to Canada gave me the opportunity to laze off, because I had everything necessary to survive, and there, if I stayed back at the refugee camps, I would have to work for my place in the world, just work for survival.
The children in the villages, they would have to live far away from their parents if they wanted to go to school, and so they had to rely on themselves.
I had to take the steps to come to understand that my family had to work hard to where we are. At the start, when I first came to Canada, it was really difficult since I didn't know anything that was going on. I didn't know the language. I didn't speak English very well. I was always an ESL student. I didn't fit in with the other kids. I remained quiet a lot of the time because I didn't know how to interact with everyone else.
I guess the hardest thing would be the language barrier, because although I came here at an early age, I still had to go to ESL throughout elementary school. And with my works and assignments, if I didn't know or if I struggled in it, it would be difficult for my parents to help me with it because they also didn't know the language.
Well, obviously, racism has always been an issue. You see all these things on the news, especially right now with all the xenophobia and all the assaults towards Asian women. You never expect it to happen to you, but I've actually had to face a lot of racist people, and I think it's ridiculous. Honestly, it's terrible that these things actually happen.
I would say it was more difficult for my parents because they had to take care of us, and they also had to find a job, and in a place where they didn't know the language, it would be a lot harder for them.
I remember one time when I was younger, I was just looking at the news and how when Justin Trudeau first became Prime Minister, there were a lot of talks about refugees and them coming in, and there was so much hate towards refugees, and I understand that there's like a lot of circumstances that comes with accepting people into the country. I somewhere inside of me, it felt like people didn't want me here as an immigrant and a refugee. It felt like I was unwanted. Honestly, I don't know that much because growing up, my family usually avoided talking about all of those things, and for the most part, I think it's because they didn't want to relive those experiences. I've gone on my own time to look up information on my background. I found very limited information due to the obscurity of Karen history, since nobody really knew what that was. I told kids that I was Karen, and they'd be like, "So you're Korean?" And it was just, I gave up. I just told them that I came from Thailand after that.
I don't know a lot about the Karen history, but I do know about the persecution by the Burmese army and a little from my parents.
But my knowledge is limited. I know that my people had to face things they never should have.
Me and my sister aren't as in touch with our heritage as we should be, and our parents are super busy.
Though I do speak Karen pretty well compared to some other youth, I'm not that in touch with Karen culture. I'll go to events whenever they're being held because my family want me there. I'll go to charity music events, but it's hard to go out with COVID. And I find that as time passes, I'll go to these events a lot less and less since I'm growing up. I start to stray my own way.
I remember when I was younger, my parents would take me to Karen celebration, Karen New Year. But now as the years go on, we go less and less. Well, in my generation, although most of us can speak Karen, most of us not very fluently, and I believe most of us can't read or write Karen. I myself can attest to this.
Karen youth, especially the ones growing up in Canada and the US, they don't really recognize their background that much because they're so influenced by Western culture that they don't really pay attention to their own.
We aren't as in touch with our tradition and culture as our parents.
But I think other people are starting to recognize that Karen people do exist and they are in need of help, pretty much.
Bata, Canada?
Yes, I do believe I belong in Canada.
Yes, I feel like I belong here. I don't really see myself living back in the village tending to animals and gardening all day. I like the hobbies that I'm able to do here, because if I were still back there, I wouldn't get to experience all the things that I love.